Once again, welcome back to the Locker Room. My name is Jim Carmack. This is Pastor Jim Locke, Senior Pastor at Hillcrest Baptist Church, Pensacola, Florida. You know, I was thinking kind of before we started this, we've been kind of getting into a routine now. We've been doing this for a while. It feels comfortable. We talk about, even after we finish recording, how much we enjoy the time, how it goes quickly. I think this has been pretty successful overall. I still get comments just about every week of people who are watching it, enjoying it, appreciate the time we take. So how do you feel about the Locker Room overall now that we've kind of got some episodes under our belt?
It's a routine, normal part of my everyday week.
Yeah.
And I've gotten 2 messages in the last 2 or 3 days of people thanking me for doing the podcast.
Yeah.
We may not have 10,000 viewers like some podcasts do, but we've got a number of faithful and consistent viewers. And usually the comments have something to do with either appreciating the insight that we're trying to bring or love seeing for lack of a better phrase, the softer side of our pastor.
Yeah.
Pastor in the real world. And some of the likes, the dislikes, and everything else. So that's just been in the past 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And so, I get a lot of positive comments, and I really enjoy doing it. Yeah. And you're always, A, prepared, but B, know how to transition in a way that may not have been part of your preparation. Something may just come to mind.
Yeah.
And, we have this deal. There's nothing really off the table.
Yeah.
We've never had to, but he also has good horse sense.
Well, I've learned over the years.
There's just some things probably that if we're going to talk about it, we need to have a heads up a couple of days in advance before we talk about it. But we've never had these podcasts. We start them, and then we stop them 35 or so minutes later.
45, 50.
Sometimes it goes a
60,
little longer. When you ask your really long questions.
Yeah, that's what does it.
But we start them and we go until we're finished, and we've never stopped a podcast in the middle of the podcast and said, you know what, this is not going the way we want it to go.
Yeah.
We do them start to finish as the Lord leads us, and I just have a great time. I enjoy it. The time flies when I'm doing it. It might drone on and on to the listener on sometimes, but it just goes by, and it's hard to imagine we're already finished. So I really enjoy it. Yeah. Hope you do too.
Oh yeah. And again, this isn't set up to be a debate or anything like that. We're not trying to catch you in anything or do that. This is just designed to talk, because again, when we started, maybe brainstorming is the wrong word, but talking about considering doing this, the idea was a lot of times you have stuff that you can't preach in the pulpit because of time constraints, and there's just a lot more to it. And this is a way to share that, and that's always been the goal. Some passages are pretty straightforward. Some sermons are pretty much, this is it. And so we have a little more latitude what we can talk about and what we can get into. But other times I think it's really good to be able to say, I didn't get to this on Sunday, but this is a key thing you need to know about the background here, or the location, or the setting of this scripture. And I think that helps with people getting a chance to understand more, and hopefully encouraging others to dig deeper. Maybe they themselves can look into something.
Well, and you tend to ask questions that you're genuinely curious about, which I appreciate, because if you're curious about them, probably the average church attender is curious about them too. And to give an example of that, what we were talking about before we went live, a week or so ago, you asked me the derivation of the word Laodicea. And to be honest with you, I didn't spend a lot of time on that. It's not as upfront as, say, Philadelphia, that everybody knows what that means.
Right.
And then, of course, we did a little digging into the name Smyrna and its association with that wonderful essence that's known in the Bible as myrrh. But I didn't, there was so much in that church at Laodicea, I just didn't spend a lot of time on the derivation of the name. And so when you asked me that was one of those kinds of questions. A, I didn't know it was coming, and B, I really wasn't sure what the answer to it was. But I remembered that our guide in Turkey kept calling it Laodicea with a hard K or a hard C, which is the way they pronounce it even to this day. And I knew that it had something to do with the people because the Greek laos is the word that's translated people. Laity comes from that word.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, it's got something to do with people. And and then when I finally pulled a couple of books down off of my shelf and went to look it up, it was one of those, well, of course, you who studied Greek for 3 years, it is a compound word, leia, from laos, meaning people. And then the second part of the word is from the Greek word dikaios, sometimes dikaiosune, laodikeia, dikaios, and that, of course, is the word from which we get the important biblical word to justify, or justification, which means, of course, to acquit, or to declare not guilty. And so most modern scholars would say it means, it's hard to pigeonhole it, but the word Laodicea means something like people's justice or righteousness for the people. And when I told Jim that,
that's interesting.
He said,
don't you think?
Well, that to me was sermon worthy, preacher.
I don't know if I said it quite like that. But I just think it's quite interesting that
justice for the people.
Justice for the people who are keeping Jesus outside of the church.
Lukewarm. That's right.
Maybe it would
my
be a
word.
good thing. No,
so now I feel like I've missed a rich teaching opportunity.
Well, it's okay. Next time around, we'll just do.
By the way, did I tell you that I was organizing my papers from the Revelation 2 and 3 sermon series?
Yeah, you sent me a text.
And I keep hard copies of everything in addition to digital copies. And so I was organizing my papers because I do have a filing system that I keep. And I had went to not only to organize them, but I was going to file them away. And in searching for, and I've got several ways that I file. I do have a file for every book in the Bible, but I also keep files by sermon series. And so I thought, well, I wonder if I've put past teachings, because I've taught on the 7 churches before. It's been like since 2007 or 2008. And I thought, well, I wonder where I put those. And when I went and found the file that I thought had paperwork from a more recent year, it only had paperwork from my previous church. And I had no recollection of that. I actually taught on the 7 churches in the year 2000.
Wow.
At the turn of the century.
Wow.
At my previous church, have no recollection of that. And I mentioned that to Brad Wood, saying, well, I don't expect you to remember this. I mean, he said, well, actually, I wasn't even with you at the time.
Oh, wow.
Because he didn't come onto our staff there in Southwest Missouri until September of 2000. And I preached that about the same time of the year. It was about March, April of the year 2000. And it was a sermon on the church, which basically, and I forget the first part of it, but the subtitle was Building a Church for the 21st Century. So as we turned the corner into Century 21, so to speak, which technically that was the last year of the 20th century.
Yeah.
So don't send me any emails. But as we turned that corner, I wanted to use those 7 churches apparently to basically show our people what a church that needed not to be ashamed looked like in the eyes of the Lord Jesus Christ. So 26 years ago, I preached for the first time on that, never consulted any of those sermons. Now, here's the thing. I read through some of the first one, and I was suppressing a gag reflux.
It wasn't that bad.
It was bad.
No, come on.
I'm thinking, man, my poor people, I want to write all of them a letter thanking them for their toleration.
Their patience.
Of that young black-haired pastor at the time who was 25 pounds lighter and obviously still trying to figure out how to effectively communicate the gospel. But no, I wouldn't have wanted to have consulted those. And so all of this was
Could you hear yourself saying it when you read it? You read like the phrasing of it and the pace of it? You kind of hear
some
yourself.
Because many of my sources are the same now as they were then.
Right.
of my reference books on Revelation. So I was consulting some of the same. So some of the thoughts were the same, but the structures were, significantly different. And a lot of what I included in this series was not in that. It's fresh material, some new stories, points of application, and the like. And so, the pulpits are kind of like, symphony orchestras. The music director, conductor of a symphony orchestra has what's known as a repertoire. Mm-hmm. These are the things we have played. This is our history. These are the things that we're hoping to play. And oftentimes, an orchestra is not going to play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony one time and say, well, we've played that already. Yeah. We're never going to play it again.
Did that 26 years ago. Yeah.
That's part of the repertoire.
Yeah.
Well, Revelation 2 and 3 is too. The Gospel of John, the book of Malachi. Mm-hmm. All of the Bible is a preacher's repertoire. And the audience of a church, even when a pastor stays a long time, mm-hmm. my audience today doesn't look anything like my audience looked like in 2006.
Right.
20 years ago. And so there are times where the Lord gives you a fresh word about something that you've treated in the past. But even at that, there have been very few things that I've touched base on twice or more, mm-hmm. because there's so many things that I still want to preach that I haven't preached yet.
Yeah.
There's some themes out of Jeremiah that I want to preach, that I'm working on for a future date. And some themes out of Isaiah, some of the Old Testament that I've not had time to deal with. But I preached through Genesis a couple of times in my ministry. I've preached through John a couple of times in my ministry, and probably not for the last time either, because that's rich material. And you ask, if I were to go in on Wednesday night saying, hey guys, what do you all want me to teach on? I guarantee you there'd be a number of them say Genesis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even though I've done Genesis from start to finish once on Sunday mornings in a series, actually 4 series, that comprise Genesis. And then I did it again later on a Wednesday night. But there'd be people there to say, oh, let's do Genesis. You know?
Well, you do. and along those lines, let me ask you, so we're recording this a couple days after Easter, mm-hmm. and you've mentioned before how Easter is the sermon. You know what you're going to preach. They know what you're going to preach. Everybody knows what you're going to preach because it's Easter, and it should be. But I'm always reminded when I'm preparing to do a sermon or have an opportunity to teach, you've got a room full of people, some are PhD scholars in theology or retired pastors who have known this stuff for years, and you've got people maybe walking in the room for the first time ever in their life.
Yeah.
If it's not like you're teaching a freshman year, English lit class where that this is something you're going to introduce to these people. You've got a wide range of people. So how do you go in with that knowledge mm-hmm. to be able to say, man, this is Revelation. Some of these guys know it, some of them don't. This is the resurrection story. Some of them know it, some of them don't. How do you balance that when you prepare to give a sermon like an Easter sermon?
It's a great question. Every student pastor understands that dilemma. I mean, for the longest time, middle schoolers and high schoolers were together in the same room mm-hmm. at Hillcrest. Now, they would divide out for small groups, but for their large group stuff, you'd have a 6th grader and a 12th grader in the same room.
Yeah.
Well, what's a student pastor supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
They're at totally different points on the growth spectrum. And the same is true in the big house. Mm. On a Sunday morning, you've got people walk with the Lord, some of them 60 plus years.
Yeah.
You've got
faithful that have been here
faithful
forever.
people.
Yeah.
What you got for me today, preacher?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then you have those who are literally brand new in the faith, couldn't find the book of Malachi.
Yeah.
If you pushed them against a wall. Then there are those who have been around church for a little bit, but just they're marginal in their faith, mm-hmm. and they're still having their spiritual worldview formed. And then you got everything in between. And so, how do you craft a message that is challenging to the well-read, well-studied, seasoned, and mature believer without going completely over the head of the novice, mm-hmm. while at the same time preaching in a way that the novice can understand without it seeming to be dumbed down to the stronger believer?
Yeah.
it's an impossible task.
Yeah.
That I would say. Only by the Spirit of God can you do it. So you don't want to be so theologically sophisticated you go over people's heads, the majority of your masses who are there. But you also want to be intentional to challenge and to spur to even greater growth those that have been walking with the Lord for a significant period of time. That has to be developed, I think, in the life of a preacher. You have to remind yourself who your audience is and prepare your remarks to that audience accordingly, realizing, you got professional people, lawyers, doctors, judges, et cetera, setting in front of, behind, alongside factory workers, assembly line workers, custodial workers, and everything in between, all of them doing noble work, and all of them at different places in their spiritual walk. It's intentionality, and it's a spiritual work.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Well, if you're dependent on the Holy Spirit will give you what you need to say to cast the seed out to that entire room in a way that's beneficial for everyone there. But it is a challenge, and you have to remind yourself constantly, this is who my audience is. Or you'll miss the mark in some way if you don't.
And I think the Spirit, you hit it right on the head, that the Spirit does the work because you're preaching about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Yep. But it's not like you are relating the Star Wars movie trilogy where everyone knows the secrets that are coming up. You're relating a spiritual truth that I'm hearing on Sunday, and I'm reminded of, this is why I can rejoice. This is why I'm saved. This propitiation was for my sin. And it's personal still. And I think that's the key. The Spirit reminds you of that. And so there may be nuanced and points and things I'll ask questions about, or I wonder why this, or what does that mean? But it's inexhaustible when you really start digging. So even though you're sharing that message, I think you hit everyone for those reasons because it's so personal.
I will say that the church is not a seminary classroom. We're there to do the work of development, but I think the general rule of thumb is, even for the week in and week out Sunday morning, simpler is better. If you have to make a choice, opt to the simple. I mean, there's I always preach on Christmas Eve, and part of the reason for that is because I've watched people during the children's story, the adults, who are leaning in, whether it's Jim Carmack or Megan Woodham telling that children's story, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be an anticlimax here. And they get more, a lot of times a lot of churches have done that where the pastor calls all the little kids up and gets down and sits on the step and tells them, and, people leave thinking, well, I got more out of that children's story. I didn't figure out what he's talking about in his sermon. But boy, I loved that children's story. It was funny, or it was, it communicated. It communicates to everybody. It's like cartoons, you watch a lot of those older cartoons. You got to be an adult to kind of understand that some of the dialogue to get all that's funny, and kids are into the movement and the motion. But some of that dialogue is going to go right over their head. But the adults in the room are going to, horse laugh, and not to equate the teaching of God's word directly with that. But I think you understand the point that I'm trying to make. You want to preach the gospel in such a way that whoever's in the room, maybe not little children, but teenagers, adults, can connect with you and stay zone in on you. And that's why on Easter, getting back to your question about Easter, I've always said the sermon on Easter ought to be the simplest gospel message you preach all year. And so sometimes it's hard because everybody, he's going to talk about the resurrection today. Well, I think, and I was having lunch with a fellow pastor, and I said, before Easter, and I said, I just have gotten to where I think it's more important to communicate just a simple gospel, which the resurrection is a huge part of, but just communicate a simple gospel. And that's what I tried to do, on Sunday. I coordinate with Dan Davis, who we preach the same sermon topically, but he has latitude to kind of include illustrations and things of that nature that I might not include, but we use the same title, the same texts, and the same outline. And he got my outline. I send him the outline and let him work it. And then we, if we need to, we dialogue about it. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, I send him an annotated outline and let him work with that, knowing that he has latitude to make that a Dan Davis sermon, while us both being able to say we preached the same message, even though it's not exactly the same message. And when he got my outline, he was immediately back at me saying, okay, let me get this straight. You got 6 points in here. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I said, it is, but I'm telling you, I'm going to move through them much faster. So each point will be about a quarter of what a normal sermon point includes. And with each of them, you're going to see I'm trying to tie a connection between what the resurrection communicates about Jesus in the most simple way possible, and then the practical effects of that for us at the service today in the simplest way possible.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, you work on it, and if you have trouble, what I can do is once I'm finished, I can let you see what I've done. And so the truth be told, that message was significantly shorter than a normal message. It was about a 25, 28-minute message on Sunday, which may be what it needs to be all the time. But you intentionally make it short, to the point, and as simple as possible on Easter.
Yeah.
Realizing that this may be your one shot you have with a good number of people in the room.
Yeah. Why do you think Easter has become that kind of Sunday where so many more people are more willing to come to church that don't normally attend or maybe even haven't attended before?
Well, I think much of it is American culture. I think that even for people that are not necessarily church people, if you were to ask them, hey, what in your mind do Christians do? Well, they go to church on Easter, and they go to church. I mean, nobody would argue that Christian people go to church. You go to church on Easter.
Christmas and Easter, yeah.
And you go to church at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to think that odd or unusual. And then, two, I think that because of that, largely, faithful Christian people tend to feel more free in inviting people to something that they feel like those people already expect believers to do.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a curiosity factor that in the minds of the unchurched too, that's a part of that. Families long to be together on Easter. It's a family holiday.
Yeah.
And so families long to be together, and so it's a good opportunity. You just include church as a part of the family outing. And then, there's usually Easter egg hunting going on after Sunday dinner, or you have a big Sunday dinner for Easter that's special, and maybe having an Easter egg hunt that goes along with that or some other family tradition. I think all of that goes into play. And, of course, we had 3 pretty full services on Sunday.
And a lot of new faces.
And 500 people over at the Spanish Trail campus, and lots of new faces, and we have that every year. And so, Easter is a part of American culture. Now, the reality is most of the people that were in churches, including ours, ain't coming back next week. Part of what I track Easter numbers, and I have them for the last several years. And one of those things I started doing several years ago with all of our Easter numbers, broken down, and adults in the room, total count, online viewership, number of children and kids ministry, number in preschool ministry, number at Spanish Trail, number at 9 Mile, all that stuff. We look at it. And several years ago, I added a row on that spreadsheet, Sunday after Easter.
Yeah.
And I always include that number. And every year, that number goes from this massive number back down to a normal number.
Yeah.
And so we rarely have, I mean, you would think, okay, if we normally have, say, 2,400 as a total number, you think, okay, the Sunday after Easter, if we had a total count of, say, 5,000, man, we ought to have at least 3,000, 3,200.
Yeah.
No, it's just, it goes back to
right
the
back to
normal
normal.
number. And that happens at every church for the most part.
Yeah.
We were talking at lunch today, and a lot of churches do different things on Easter. I've been part of churches that have done it different, go off campus, find a convention hall, convention center, whatever. I've been part of churches that have done that. Not a thing wrong with it. At Hillcrest, you know, we kind of want people to see a reasonable expectation of, if they were to come back next Sunday, this is pretty much what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So we're not interested in putting on a big extravaganza or anything for Easter. We do add some special services. We do add a third service on Sunday. We do make more room. But we really, I mean, you're there. We don't, our approach, singing, worship, preaching, praying, giving a gospel call, it's the same as when we always do it. We just have more times to do it and more people here. But we want people, if you come back next week, this is kind of what you're going to get.
Yeah.
We may be a little bit more dressed up today than we will be next week, but pretty much what you see is what you get. And so that, you know, that's kind of our approach to it. But the reality is, whether you do it like we do it, I know churches, they don't change anything. I could name you a pastor, a very popular pastor in the Southern Baptist Convention. I have one of his books. He stays in series for Easter
Doesn't
Sunday.
even do a special sermon.
No. Whatever series he's in, he stays right in the series. And you've joined us here today. We're in the midst of a series on the wonderful and practical letter of James.
Yeah.
And today we're in James chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. And I want to be talking about, and then, it's not like he doesn't incorporate the reality of the resurrection into what he's talking about, but just the same. And then you have others that, pack out a big convention hall or whatever. Our church in Texas, when I was in seminary, did that, and it was a massive throng of people. But that's not what they're going to get. And, it requires a massive amount of work, and you're taking your staff away from their families over the weekend to tear up, set down, or stage up, tear down, all of that stuff. And it's very labor intensive. And so this is our approach at Hillcrest, not a one-size-fits-all. But regardless of what you do, most of the time, the following Sunday is going to look very much like what a normal Sunday looks. You might get a few extra people, but my experience is you're not going to be up 50%.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I mean, I think you understand that going into it, and you know that, and you give the clear gospel presentation. You've presented them with the truth. The gospel as Paul sums it up, and as you say the best, Jesus died according to the scriptures, was buried, rose again the third day according to the scriptures. Now you know the truth. And so I think that's why it's so important. I think we do it well. I think we talked about it this morning, I know, but I think we do a good job of accommodating the new people that will come and hopefully making them feel welcome, but also being true to our who we are.
And I want to give a shout out to everybody. I mean, the pastor's in the pulpit and the music guys are up on the stage, and we tend to get all of the emails and words of encouragement and the like. I just want to take time to recognize publicly all of our staff. You lead a guest services / first impressions ministry here that's second to none.
They're great.
Wonderful volunteer people, and they're all people, which is what you need to be. If you don't love people, leave that alone. But you got to smile and you got to love people.
Yeah.
And those guys out there and ladies working in the rain in less than ideal conditions. And we recognized in every service our first impression people. They got rousing applause. Very thankful. Gavin Crane and his production team. Working extra hours, not only on Sunday, but Thursday night, Friday night. Those guys work behind the scenes. In fact, they wear black. You know,
so
you're not even supposed to see them.
Yeah.
And yet the reality is, you know, not only what we say, but how we say it and how it's heard and how it's received and how it's visualized is our A game. That's what we're about. And if that's not right, then not much else is going to be right. So, you know, Megan taking time to lead our children, Heather Ball, bless her soul, infants and toddlers,
babies,
you know, just everywhere on Sunday morning. We had, you know, we ministered to over 500 kids total just on Easter Sunday.
What a blessing.
And then all the volunteers that work back there and the like. It just, you can't go on enough. Those people don't get a lot of recognition, and they don't do it for the recognition. They do it because that's the way they serve Christ, and that's the way they show they love their church. But we're all very blessed and very grateful for the efforts that people put forward, particularly on Easter, but every Lord's Day.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this. We don't have a lot of time left, but I want to ask you about Easter itself. And so there's different views on it. And again, this is no way to have a debate about it. But I just wanted your opinion. There's can be a pushback to not use the term Easter because it's not a biblical term. It came about culturally and maybe some will say secularly. In that you mentioned the Easter egg hunts and the bunnies and the stuff. Should we be more intentional as a church to only say Resurrection Sunday and not use the term to distance ourselves from culture?
I don't get too bent out of shape about any of that. Some people, it's a big deal, and if you say Easter, there are some people that correct you, and come on. Here's the thing, the whole Easter thing is connected with a festival that used to be called Ishtar. Sounds a lot like Easter. I read an article from Rod Martin, who is a very prolific blogger. He's a Southern Baptist Christian, but he's also into all things political and the like. And he's got an email that you can subscribe to. I don't subscribe to it, but a lot of his stuff is free. And he had an article on Easter that I thought was really well done, where he just said this stuff is way overblown. And even if it was a pagan festival, and the information that's out there from my perspective is sketchy. But here's the thing, even if it was a pagan festival, we've taken it over. It's ours.
Now it means
it's ours now.
The Resurrection Day.
And everybody knows Easter means the tomb is empty. And so I don't get too bent out of shape about that. I wish people a happy Easter.
Yeah.
But I also say a number of times Resurrection Sunday or Resurrection Day or whatever. I think that's probably better because there's no way to miss the meaning of that. And so if I had to pick one that I would prefer, certainly we would say Resurrection Day is a more apropos term. But I have no inhibitions about using the term Easter.
Okay.
No inhibitions about hiding Easter eggs, and we did that with our grandkids. I don't have most churches. We don't do it here as a church, but all of us could name numbers of churches that have Easter egg hunts as a part of their lead up to Easter. Some of them drop them out of helicopters for crying out loud. And so no, we've taken it over. It's ours. It's our holiday.
Yeah.
We don't care about, what pagans used to do. We don't even give that a nod.
Yeah.
And I can remember my friend Willie Rice, who was a former pastor of our church, got into it when he was pastor here, was having a kind of debate about Halloween, and his response was, bottom line, it's just a pumpkin. And I doubt Willie listens to our podcast, but if he does and I'm mistaken, I apologize to him. But it's just this was what a member was telling me.
Yeah.
It's just a pumpkin, So obviously we don't want to worship pagan idols, and we don't want to bow down before Artemis, the god of fertility, but at the same time, a traditional type of Easter egg hunt, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about that. And the kids find it fun.
Yeah.
And as with anything else, we talk to them about Jesus and what the real meaning of the celebration is.
Yeah.
My grandkids and I was Easter. Everybody was over at the house on Easter. We had this big dinner. I'd preached 3 times on Sunday morning, and I thought I'm just going to crash out. And I went into my bedroom, and I thought I'm just going to take a little snooze, as others who will remain nameless were already snoozing, except for the grandboys. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to be the one that basically is charged with the babysitting while everybody else is going to bed. So I was channel surfing, and on Turner Classic Movies, they had Ben-Hur. And I got in on the last part where he's discovered his mother and his sister have been relegated to the leper colony, and basically this is about the time that Jesus is before Pilate, and the whole movie culminates with the crucifixion, and his mother and his sister.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah, his mother. Well, I probably shouldn't. That's right. But it culminates with I'm not going to tell you how it ends. I started to.
Kidding.
Real spoiler I almost gave.
Yeah.
But the kids came in there, and immediately they were, "What show is this?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, is this about Jesus dying?" I didn't say a word. Is this about Jesus dying on the cross? And I said, yeah. And I thought, okay, Ben-Hur was made in 1959. It's G-rated. Climb on up, boy. They were fixed to it, fixated on it. And Jesus, of course, leaves Pilate, and he's carrying the cross. He's going through the stations of the cross. And it's at that point, he drops it. Ben-Hur tries to give him a drink of water. The Romans swat him away. And it's that point that Christ passes all of them, and cowering in the background in this massive throng are the leprous mother and sister. Leave everybody else to watch it. But the kids, my point is, the kids were fixated on it. And I got to talk to them, about this is what today's all about, boys.
Yeah.
And that's what you do with Easter. You talk about it.
Yeah.
You point your family and your kids. Just like Christmas. Same with Christmas. We decorate our homes. We put Christmas trees up. There are people saying, oh, it's pagan. Well, it's just a tree, and it's pretty. And most of us, if we get away with it, probably would go a long time before we took it down. But it's all about keeping the focus on the main thing. And the thing about Christmas, same thing. We've taken it over.
Yeah.
It's ours now because Christmas belongs to Christ.
That's right.
So that's my take on it. Others see it a little bit differently, and again, that's cool. That's all great. I use both terms because, one, culturally, people understand it as Easter, but at the same time, I use that phrase Resurrection Day to make the connection between the two.
What it is,
And I did that all through the morning on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that.
Good. For those who weren't able to make it or be in the room, what wardrobe did you end up wearing? The seersucker suit?
On Sunday? No, I don't own one. But Heath Wilson did.
I know. That's what I was going to lead to.
He stole the fashion show.
Pastor Heath. And so did Jesse Grant. I don't know if you saw Jesse.
I didn't see. I know. Never saw
Jesse
it.
had one on too.
Man, these boys.
Out of honor for you.
I'm telling you, he stole the show with that seersucker suit and pink tie with pink carnation, a la Marty Robbins.
Representing.
And so he represented strong. I wore the traditional Navy suit with the white shirt, and so the Baptist uniform. And but he has got me. I'm telling you, we're going to end up having to do it. You just know.
I know we do.
We've got to do it.
We've got to get one.
We've got the climate for it and the like, and but he sure did. He looked good. Everybody looked good on Sunday. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Everybody comes in their best. They're looking great, and we made some good pictures. It was really a great day at Hillcrest.
It was.
Total count, not quite 5,200.
Amen.
All told. That's everything, total impact number between the two campuses.
Praise God. That's fantastic.
5,200, down slightly from the previous year, but I'm blaming it on the rain.
The rain.
There's no doubt the rain has an effect.
We were trying to get it to slow down or speed up or one thing, but it just hit in the morning, and that's okay. So people still showed up, and still a good morning. We had one young family come out because we didn't have the kids' activities at 8. Or, because we were early for early service.
Right.
We had a young family come out, and I don't want to say their name publicly, but they were so sweet. They were excited, ready to go. The kids were dressed in their best and looked wonderful. And the mom was standing out, and she had a longer dress on. And at one point, I just happened to be walking around the parking lot, looked back over, and the bottom of her dress was just soaked. I mean, was just wet from the knees down. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She said, I told the kids, it is just water and it's going to dry. She said, we're out here to greet people, and everybody had the umbrellas. It was really sweet. It was a really cool day, as always. As we look forward to Easter, we talk about how we kind of gear up for it, but it is a really special day. So appreciate that.
God blessed us, and we're grateful.
All right, we got to wrap this up, but we do want you guys in the house Sunday. We're coming up on April 12th.
Word.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one quick word. We ran the sermon bumper. Great job on that. That was a Jim Carmack, Doug Kimsel production. Yeah. Really great job. And I thought, when I saw that, I thought that needs to be our sermon bumper for Sunday, kind of as a teaser. And this coming Sunday, the much anticipated, I hope we live up to the anticipation, series on what's next, life after life. What happens 30 seconds after you die? Most commonly, I think, thought about question, pondered question, asked question. And we're going to talk about some of those things. We're going to look at heaven, take about twice as much time to talk about things associated with heaven than we will get to hell in a smaller, kind of more compact kind of way. But we're going to do a fairly comprehensive series on what the Bible teaches, a Christian worldview about heaven and about hell, life after life. We won't touch every base, and we won't answer every question. There are books that we will send you to that try to do
large
that.
Books.
Large books.
Yeah.
There's no way we can touch all those bases, but we're going to hit the high points and hopefully give people a pretty well-developed understanding of heaven and hell as they exist and as they will exist, and who goes there and why. So, and some of this will include things associated with what we commonly refer to as the end times, things like the second coming. How does the second coming fit into that? How does the millennium fit into that? Is heaven way off? What happens to planet Earth? All these kinds of things. And then things like, who will we know in heaven? What will we do in heaven? As best as we can, we'll try to scratch that itch, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think I am too. And I've had a lot of conversations with people who are excited because these are things we discuss but don't really have. You don't point to chapter and verse to say, here's the answer to the exact question you're asking. So there's a lot of preparation. I know you've been spending a lot of time getting ready for this because these are difficult questions, but that's why I'm excited, because you're coming from a biblical view on this. This is what Scripture says as clearly as we can know it, and then leaving it from there. I think it's really going to be good.
Yep.
So
can't wait.
Yeah, me too. So that starts Sunday, April 12th. Please join us in-house or online. And again, we are just so grateful that you would take time to spend some time with us. So until next time in the locker room, God bless you.